Hello world, I'm Denise. Thank you for joining me on my channel Under My Vine and Fig Tree. I've been wanting to share this particular message for such a long time and things have always got in the way. But today is the message about Jesus healing a blind man, and I'm sure you may remember the story. Let me read it briefly. This is in Mark chapter 8, verses 22 to 25. And it says, Then they came to Bethsaida, and some people brought a blind man and begged Jesus to touch him. He took the blind man by the hand and led him outside the village. When he had spit on the man's eyes and put his hands on him, Jesus asked, Do you see anything? He looked up and said, I see people. They look like trees walking around. Once more Jesus put his hands on the man's eyes. Then his eyes were opened, his sight was restored, and he saw everything clearly. Jesus sent him home saying, Don't go into the village. And so many people have put forward thoughts and theories about Jesus had to do two healings on this man, and speculating about what the trees looked like that maybe the man saw dimly at first. And somebody put a post recently that just opened that in amazing detail, that this man saw people that looked like trees. Now, first of all, if you've spent any time in the company with a blind person, you'll know that they have to experience something to be able to liken it to something else. So it's my understanding that this man must have felt what a tree must feel like. He must have been able to feel the branches and the leaves and so on, to be able to describe the people, know that they were people, and say they looked like trees. So that was interesting. But this particular day, it was on the 1st of May, and it first came through in 2021. And somebody put up this particular meme, and I'll show it to you. Jesus, we look like trees. And you can see that a heart has this shape of trees, and then the lungs and the nerves and thumb as tree rings. And so there's this feature that we look like trees. And suddenly, when you consider this passage, and let me take you to another scripture that just really blew this right open for me. The verse is in 1 Samuel chapter 16, which is the story of when Samuel is sent to anoint a king from the sons of Jesse. And in verse 6, when he arrives, Samuel saw Eliab, and this was the oldest son of Jesse, and he said, Surely the Lord's anointed stands before the Lord. And this is at verse 7, which opens up the whole picture. The Lord said to Samuel, Do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at the things man looks at. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. And the story goes on to how God chooses David to be anointed because he has the right heart. And we know from the scriptures that David is a man after God's own heart. So when we go to this healing story of the man who saw people and they looked like trees, I believe that God was letting him see people the way God sees people, that he can look right inside at people's hearts. And then Jesus had touched him a second time so that he could see people the way humans see people. Isn't that a fascinating thought? That really just knocked my socks off, and it's given me such joy to think of it. And then this year in 2024, the message came through again on that same day. That scripture came through about God looking at not at the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. And it just affirmed and nailed that down for me, that this was absolutely what God had done was to show the blind man, the previously blind man, how God sees humans. Isaiah chapter 55 and verse 12 says, You will go out in joy and be led forth in peace. The mountains and the hills will burst into song before you, and all the trees of the field will clap their hands. Isn't that such a beautiful picture? But it doesn't make sense to us unless we consider this previous imagery of God seeing us as trees, seeing our hearts, and if the trees of the field burst into song before you, and the mountains and the hills burst into song, and the trees of the fields will clap their hands. And if we jump over to 1 Chronicles chapter 16, it's David's psalm of thanks, and he says in verse 33, "Then the trees of the forest will sing, they will sing for joy before the Lord, for he comes to judge the earth." And that's an interesting concept, to judgment, joy and judgment together. But where God has seen the people and he sees their hearts, and these trees, these people who look like trees, their hearts are in the right place. They know their relationship with God. There's just joy when God comes to judge the earth. Any thoughts? Does that make sense to you? Just some ideas that come together that connect interestingly in my thoughts, and I hope they bring you joy. Thank you for listening. God bless you, and remember that the Lord looks at the heart and not the outward appearance. God bless you. Take care.